Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Cody and JR here with Extreme Outfitters. Today's video we're going to be covering arrow building. Alright, so arrow building, you can go down a very big rabbit hole really quick on building arrows. We're going to kind of go over what we do in the shop as we build arrows and help you kind of hopefully determine what you need to do. So one of the biggest things obviously with it is going to be your budget. So establishing a budget for it. It can get very expensive very quickly, and it will depend on what you go with.
Yeah, you can do pre-built option, factory fletch, Easton, gold tip, black eagle. Then you can go a custom route where you choose your rat, vane, maybe lighted knock, components on the front end, and tailor it to your needs.
Correct. Yep. Another thing to really determine is your arrow diameter. Depending on what you're going to be doing can determine what arrow diameter you want to go with, or if you just want to start playing with different stuff. So obviously with your 4mm arrows, your micro diameter, that's going to help a lot for wind drift, and if you're going to be taking longer shots, it is something to consider with that. Or you could always go with the tried and true, just a standard diameter, 6.5mm arrow. Just really depends on what you want to go with.
And one factor with that, it's available components. 4 mils, you are limited to a half out typically, or a hit insert style.
Yep,
5 mils,
the deep
standard.
6 for the 4 mils, the deep 6, which isn't as popular anymore, I've noticed, but still out there for the guys that run those inserts and everything. And then determining your arrow spine, that is really going to determine or be determined based on your draw length, draw weight. Other things to consider is your insert weight. If you're going to go with a heavier system, you need to go up in spine for that, and also broadhead, field point weight.
Yeah, and that varies per discipline, whether target, traditional archery. It varies depending on what rabbit hole you want to go down.
And then going into vane options, there's so many different vane options from different companies, different heights, different lengths, different profiles. So it's really something that you can just kind of go down a really steep rabbit hole very quick. I know we keep saying that, but it just is endless of options you can choose. So, and then another thing to consider as well, if we're going down this rabbit hole, is your helical and offset. And then whether you want to go with like a trad vane or feathers, mainly for traditional archery, or they even have a nylon type vane for trad, which is a lot thinner, a lot flimsier, so if you're going to shoot right off the shelf, you can still shoot those. All of these in the long run are going to help in steering your broadhead. That's kind of the end goal we're going with, is for a hunting setup. So these can all determine that, and then that's going to determine based on whether you have a wide cut on contact broadhead, or if you're going to go with a mechanical broadhead. That is something else you can really kind of consider with that.
You can run really high profile vane, really small vane for mechanical. Depends on how well your tune is and how good your shot is if you want to cover something up.
In the end goal, it's going to really help you get hopefully your ideal speed if you're looking for anything with that, your arrow weight or for kinetic energy, and whether it's a different species that you're looking to hunt with or hunt for. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually go over how we build our arrows. We're going to start off with, we've got this Axis 5mm right here. We're going to strip it down and then show you our process for refletching. So for stripping off old vanes, I like to take a box cutter. I'm going to go on a very steep angle next to the shaft. You want to make sure that you're not going to take any carbon off, so you got to kind of really take your time with this. Another thing I like to do is take the knock off, because there's nothing worse if you were to start cutting, you slip off and you hit your knock, well then you're going to have to replace that knock anyway. So I like to go on a very steep angle, just very light pressure. Most times they will come off pretty easy, and you want to make sure you get all that old glue and vane material off. I just do a little bit of pressure, nothing extreme, just a little bit on a very steep angle, and just scrape until we get all that glue off.
And it's a pretty dull razor blade too, that way we don't go into the carbon at all.
And a lot of times once you're done, you can kind of take your finger and run over it, make sure you got everything off. And then I will take a napkin and I will wipe it off. Okay, from there we'll obviously put our knock back in. So we use a Bitzenberger most of the times for our fletching. That way you have actually a seat for your knock to sit in. I'll hand that over to you. So I'm going to give that over to Cody, and I'm going to have him just explain how he likes to do his arrows.
So typically I like to find, if I'm shooting a victory, it'll have a spinal line. I'll usually index off of the spinal line. If an arrow does not have a spinal line, I'll usually just find a logo or some part of the arrow I like and start going off of that.
Correct.
From there, I'll adjust the clamp. If I want to do a 3 fletch or a 4 fletch, I'll adjust the clamp to my needs. And I typically run a helical. direction doesn't matter unless I'm shooting a single bevel. So.
Correct. Yep. And that was something I was going to specify as well. Whether you do a left or right helical, really, honestly, doesn't matter as much. But unless if you are going to be shooting a single bevel broadhead, I would recommend matching that. So if you're left helical or a left bevel, do a left helical. Right bevel, do a right helical.
Yep. And one big thing to remember is keeping, if you're going to do this yourself, make sure your clamp is clean. If there's any excess glue or anything, it's going to make the vane set uneven and it may not stick all the way. So I typically do the third mark down on the bits and burger. That way the vane doesn't contact my chin or facial hair. From there, depending on what vane you use, you might have to use a primer pen.
Yep. We
use a lot of Max Stealth here, so we always use a primer pen. I'll just test it on my hand to make sure it's working. And I'll just run a quick line down the vane. I'll just inspect it to make sure all of it dried from there.
Yep, so a primer pen is basically there to help. It's going to actually make little pores inside of the vane, so that way it'll help for the adhesion with the glue. And it also helps clean it too.
For me, I usually do about 5 dots down the center of that vane. I usually take a Q-tip and I'll rub all those dots down so I've got a nice, even, smooth surface down that vane. Make sure the vane's fully seated on the shaft and give it about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Let it sit. From there, once I get the vane on, I'll take it out of the jig and I'll clean off any excess glue. This step's not super important, but if you want your make the shaft to look really clean, it's just good to get the glue off. And just repeat the process 3 or 4 times depending on what you want.
And then for cutting arrows, what we're going to do, obviously, it's going to depend on your draw length and draw weight for whatever arrow you want for arrow length. So what we do is we'll figure out what you need it to be. We're going to get it into our jig right here. We'll get it set up in our arrow saw, and I like to know which way my arrow, the blade spins, so I'm going to actually roll it into the saw blade. So this blade spins counterclockwise, I believe it is, so I'm going to roll it into it. Helps hopefully get it more even cut. So once it's cut, another thing to really consider when you're doing this is taking your time, let it roll into it. Don't really push it into it, so that way you're going to get a more even cut. That way you don't have to worry about damaging the carbon as well. So once you're done, you should have a nice even cut. You can kind of see it right there. And then from there, we will take our arrow square. So I'm going to help clean up the end of that arrow, make sure it is an even cut. Run around there a few times, just make sure nice and clean. Help get some of that carbon off. And then we have our bore brush, so we're going to go under the inside to help score it. Run it in there a bunch of times. It's going to help clean up any excess carbon in there and also help score it. So once you apply your glue for whatever insert system you're going to run, it's going to help adhere a little bit better so you don't have to worry about stuff pulling out. And then from there, obviously you're going to determine whatever component you're going to use. For this, we would end up using just the standard hit insert that this comes with, but again, that's going to be determined on what you like. Get everything glued in there and get it all set. So when you have your finished product, it's all done, ready to go. So there you have it, guys. That is a little bit of a nutshell of how we like to build arrows here at Extreme Outfitters. Don't forget, if you want to order some arrows from us, you can order individually and we will cut and glue. We also are looking at getting into our custom arrow building. So if you are interested in having us custom build some arrows for you, let us know. We will hopefully have all that stuff going here shortly. But as always, we do appreciate you guys watching. If you are local, come check us out. We're right outside of Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Or hit us up on the website, extremeoutfitters.com, for all of your archery and bow hunting needs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.